Hello, everyone. Welcome to Harmonic Earth Healers live stream. I'm Mariquita Solis, one of the Harmonic Earth Healers. And at Harmonic Earth Healers, our mission is to connect people to Mother Earth and to really love all of her animals, her beings. That's what Harmonic Earth Healers is about. We do Reiki, sound journeys, forest bathing, laughter yoga, and I do feminine empowerment coaching to connect you back to your true beauty, your inner self, and to this beautiful planet. When we love Mother Earth and treat her with respect and all of our animals, we all shine. So I'm excited about our live stream today. We have Alaina Sigler here, and she is an animal chaplain. She is joined with Snoopy, who might be making an appearance in a minute. He's on standby. So we will be talking to Alaina about how to cope in this world where there are some harsh elements and how can we find peace. So, welcome, Alaina.
Hi, Mariquita. Thank you for having me on today. I'm so joyed to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're thankful for your peaceful energy. Um, I'd love to find out first, what was your childhood like? Is this something that was kind of like you grew up thinking, I want to be an animal chaplain, or I really love animals, or I really am drawn to them? I mean, where did you come from?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. My childhood really revolved around being around some animals, but not other animals. So when I was little, I loved to play outdoors with friends. I loved to be in the dirt. We would find worms wriggling around, and we would take walks over to our elementary school, and we would just adventure in the trees. There was a little forest kind of situated next to my school, and friends and I would head out there. And oftentimes I would get poison ivy, but a lot of my time was also spent indoors. So I guess I was really grateful to have the opportunity to be outdoors so often and supported by parents who really emphasize that time outside is really important. And that's where I made connections with Daddy Longlegs and other beings who eventually made their way into our home, into our basement too. And I really attribute my lack of phobia around spiders to being near them. I kind of always knew that spiders could be found in our basement, and I would just kind of sit there and watch them quite often. And the animal companions in our family, we had everyone from a beautiful dog named Buddy to some hermit crabs, fishes, gerbils. We had lots of tiny beings in our home who I was very lucky to share that space with, because I now have an appreciation of, not only who they were, but I eventually learned, where they came from. The horrible conditions that we see when we encounter fishes at, PetSmart or Petco, and how they're cramped into the tanks, and, they essentially mimic puppy mills. Same with hermit crabs and gerbils and all these other little beings who, today, my first and only instinct is to rescue, of course. Back in the day, I was grateful to share that space with them. And it was interesting because something we talked about in my animal chaplaincy training program was not knowing what happened to some animals when they passed on. And that was the case for me too. My dad was very kind, and he didn't want to subject us to seeing the bodies when a gerbil had passed on, for instance, and he would bury them himself. But I now think back to some of those times when maybe it would have been nice for kids, for myself, to have had the opportunity to be present. with their burial, to be present with death and to kind of nurture that side. So,
Well, that makes a lot of sense because for me, we had two ponies, and I was told the ponies were run over by a train. I don't know how in the world. I mean, that's something that always stays in my memory, and I couldn't understand it, and I still can't understand it. I don't think the ponies were run over by a train. I think they were taken somewhere else, right? And why would you say that ponies were run over by a train anyway? It just seems very. If they were run over by a train, that would be something you wouldn't want to tell anyone because, as you can see, that's one memory that has stuck in my mind. So it's very strange, and why we are hesitant, I guess, as adults, while we try to protect and invent when we can be honest about things and to allow children to grow. And I see, um, I think it is healing when you are able to say goodbye and you see a little body that and talk about it. I mean, I think that's really something we need in society for our children because we have to accept death. And I think if we start learning at an early age, we don't have to be so afraid of it.
I think you're spot on. Being able to talk about it, normalizing discussions around death and not being even as afraid. Yeah, I think that's really key because that is very common, with other animals, with all kinds of beings. So, especially those who share our homes with us. And yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that can be the hardest. So, um, tell me about what is an animal chaplain?
That's a great question. You know, an animal chaplain can have so many hats. Um, for myself, animal chaplaincy looks like animal activism, advocating for all beings, whether they're, a more than human or human individual. It also looks like providing a compassionate presence. That's pretty much grounded in everything as an animal chaplain, is being there to offer understanding.
And what would you say if I came to you and said, well, my pet passed away and my family's telling me animals don't have a soul, so he's just gone and I feel horrible, I feel sick because I know he had a soul. What would you say to that?
That's something that I would, yeah, validate right then and there. Well, of course, you believe that animals have a soul. That's something that's very important to you. It sounds like, so many others have that exact same belief that animals have souls. They have that spirit. They have that essence, whatever we want to call it.
And that is so needed because we have so many people that are grieving with animals that have passed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do funerals for animals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, memorials are very common for humans, and animal chaplains expand that a bit further to offer ceremony, to offer a way to honor these individuals who, they have so much meaning just in their own right, but then the meaning they bring to our lives as well expands that a little bit further too. And so being able to honor, how their influence, their teachings, their wisdom affected us, and maybe bringing that into the ceremony through blessings, through ritual, whatever folks are comfortable with at that time. And however they're comfortable with um, sending the physical body into the what's next. So whether that's cremation, whether that's burial, aquamation. So I work with folks to determine, what would this ceremony look like for you that you also think might pair well with that animal's interest. So maybe that's in the backyard because they, spent a lot of time next to this apple tree laying in the shade. It might look like all sorts of things. So, and an Animal Chaplain offers that guidance, some resources. If it's difficult finding the funding to pay for a cremation, for instance, then that's an extension of our help as well. Our offering is looking locally to find out, where are there some low-cost options for cremation, for veterinary care. The list goes on and on. So,
well, that's wonderful. Where are you located?
I'm in the Denver area. I'm on the east side of Denver, not too far from downtown out here in Colorado. So there's frankly a lot of wonderful low-cost veterinary options out here. So folks have access to all sorts of supports. It's fantastic. And I really want to see these continue to expand because I really needed.
It is very much needed. But we have so many homeless animals. And one thing that's a deterrent is the cost of getting treatment for our animals. It's very sad. There's a lot of sad elderly people that would benefit so much, but they can't take on the expense of an animal.
Right. Yeah. There might be so many things that get in the way of getting, an animal, whether they're a dog or, a rat, to a vet clinic. And I will say, especially for, someone who's not a dog or a cat, it's that much more challenging to find them quality vet care. So that's another really big need as well.
Yes, I didn't think about that, but that makes sense. And where did you study to be an animal chaplain if somebody's watching and wants to become an animal chaplain?
The Compassion Consortium. It's a wonderful nonprofit organization. They offer a 3-month kind of foundational program, a 6-month certificate program, and then if you go into the 9-month ordination program, then you can become an ordained animal chaplain. And they offer this every year. It starts in the fall. In addition, the Compassion Consortium offers a beautiful Sunday service every single month where animals are brought into the space online, or maybe just like Stoopy here, the dog laying next to me on the couch. Maybe they're kind of indirectly or directly watching as well. I know Snoopy likes to watch other dogs on YouTube play around. So, yeah, the Compassion Consortium is wonderful. It really lifted me up from a place of a bit of ongoing burnout, frankly, as an activist. I took another direction, and that was it. And it was really needed. So,
well, tell me about your activism.
So my activism right now looks like doing some local grassroots work with an organization called Pro Animal Future. And when I learned about Pro Animal Future last May in 2023, a friend of mine, was explaining it at a local vegan potluck. And then I attended the introduction at the University of Denver and realized what they have in store, not only for here in Colorado, but nationwide, is incredible. So last year we went around, we collected, sorry, my screen went to sleep.
Okay.
We ended up collecting like over 30,000 signatures to get 2 ballots passed and on the ballot for November to ban slaughterhouses here in the city, as well as fur products in the city of Denver. And so now we're in phase 2. We're talking to Denver voters. We're engaging in what's called deep canvassing, postering, writing postcards. There's all sorts of wonderful ways to get involved with Pro Animal Future. And our big 10-year vision and it's already started, is to take ballot initiatives like this and mimic them all around the country in states that have citizen-initiated ballot measures. So that looks like, the Portland area is a big focus right now. Chicago is in discussion. California, you may have heard, has the CAFO ban in Sonoma County. That's up for, I don't remember how many that would affect. I think it's over 20. I'll have to look that number up again, but yeah, it's very exciting to see, like, when we look systemically, what we can achieve. So Superior Farms in the Globeville neighborhood here in Denver, you slaughter 1,500 lambs per day. They're the largest lamb slaughterhouse in the country. And so for me, what that has looked like as an animal chaplain is offering emotional support groups to folks within our community. It means extending Animal Reiki at the slaughterhouse itself. There's a bike path that runs adjacent to the slaughterhouse, and they continue to have vigils on site. But sometimes I'll bring my folding chair and sit off to the side and simply meditate and offer that space for the lambs.
Tell me about Animal Reiki.
Yeah, that's another beautiful side of animal chaplaincy. Kind of has all these pieces that come together. Animal Reiki is spiritual energy. That's what it amounts to. It's meditation. But in this case, it differs a bit from human Reiki because the Let Animals Lead method taught by Kathleen Prasad, my instructor, focuses on an embodied practice through meditation so that energetically, physically, animals can choose. They have the agency to join or to not join. So what that means is I don't go over to Snoopy here and I just simply put my hands on him, saying I'm going to focus on this area of your body that needs healing. Snoopy would come up to me if he desired that direct contact. Same with the energy. A lot of animals do choose to accept the Reiki, to accept that healing energy, but others may not, and that's fine. And that's their wisdom guiding them towards what they need in the moment. It is their choice. And that's kind of the beauty of the Let Animals Lead method. That has expanded my appreciation for what we perceive as offering to animals. It is an offering, but that agency expands that much further. Their freedom expands that much further. We can dissolve speciesism that much more.
What is speciesism? Speciesism, for somebody that might not know that's watching.
Yeah, speciesism is, just how we view some animals in a certain light and other animals in different ways. So we may have preferences for dogs, and then we may have a distaste or a lack of appreciation or a way of discriminating against rats and mice, or also farmed animals are very common. So it's an act of discrimination towards some species. We may prefer the human species, and we may, hate spiders. So yeah, it runs alongside other forms of discrimination, but it's uplifting and it's freeing to notice when we're engaging in something that may be speciesist with our actions, or I would say even our thoughts, and to let those moments kind of sit with curiosity. Why am I doing this? Why am I acting this way? And so that's what I do when I offer Animal Reiki. I catch myself. If I start to think, well, I'm not seeing this behavior difference, I'm not seeing so and so start to fall asleep, which is a common sign that animals have accepted Reiki. And even when that thought pops into my mind, that's me veering away from the Reiki space, me offering just simply love and light and starting to fixate on a worry, which is what we move away from in the Reiki space. We move away from worry and fear, um, those thoughts that end up ultimately impeding that healing energy that we would be offering. So,
Yes, I see what you're saying, and what I really like is that you're allowing the animal to come to you. It's the animal's choice,
mhm.
and even when I see how dangerous it is um, when we meet a new animal, and then if we go right on top of the animal, and it can scare the animal, it can scare him or her, and they might bite, and then we're not understanding,
Yeah.
right? This allowing, and it always should be that way. Allow the animal to come on their terms, and that is so respectful. What you're saying. I mean, this is a whole different way. I think when people adopt animals, it's like I really want to get the animal to love me, right? And I want to, and so now I'm going to just shower, and that's frightening. So for my little dog, he, I adopted him a couple years ago, and so some reason he nips, and so I really don't like people petting him just because of that. I mean, we're working on that, but I don't know what's going on with him. But obviously, he doesn't want everybody grabbing him. And little dogs, little animals have that issue where people they find him very cute, and so they want to. Little kids want to pet him. So, but that respectfulness of allowing him to come and him to be at his own pace is really nice. And so I find that beautiful in the Reiki session that you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And we can expand that offering of agency, just like you mentioned, when children come up and try and pet. Uh, what's the dog's name? Sorry,
Louis, Louis,
Louie. When kids come up and try and pet Louie, I mean, I experienced the same thing with Mika, who's a husky who she passed this past January, but kids would love to run up and pet her because she was fluffy and white, and it just seemed so enticing. And this happened all the time, not with just kids. But, I would have to voice, like, with children, it was an opportunity for some humane education. Let's notice how she's backing away. Let's notice how her eyes are getting bigger. She has whale eyes. She's becoming anxious and voicing those emotions in the present, um, to advocate that much further and offer her that much more agency and say, this is not the best time to pet Mika.
that's amazing what
That's
you're saying.
it's I realized, and I had difficulty doing this at first, telling kids no. But after a while I noticed she's not, yeah, sometimes she's just not a fan of this. And I have to step up and say no. And I did that with adults too. And I guess for me that was a little bit tougher. Coming from a background of 13 years in education, I mostly worked with elementary aged kids because their faces would light up. But I realized, you know, I need to ensure that next level of responsibility for what she needs in this moment, which is safety. She needs to feel safe. Um, Same thing with Snoopy here. He gets timid at the dog park when folks try to approach him. And with some people, he's fine, but others, he backs off. He has the agency because he's off leash to walk away. And so, yeah, I see as an extension of the Reiki space, giving animals that energetic healing, the physical space that I was already aware of way before I started Reiki training. I just saw that um, agency to offer energetic space as a natural extension of that. So.
Well, I love the way you were identifying like the whale eyes. I think you said being very cognizant of that. We when we look at animals, I mean, and we can when we really pay attention, animals are speaking to us without words. Now I know the second before Louis is about to nip, and a lot of people can't see it, but I see it coming because his eyes are, he's in that position of like, okay, boom. So it's very interesting that I would say the average Joe is not aware. It's like you're saying. I think you're doing a great job of educating when you're pointing out the body language to children. That's so important.
It's not, common that they learn these things in school. I would say some schools, yeah, I won't just, but yeah, in general, it's not a common practice for humane education to be in schools, even with a focus on, how much society loves cats and dogs, even to focus on, well, let's respect their bodies, their emotional state, their agency.
Right. Yes. I've had people come up. So I've had dogs I had one dog that was very aggressive towards other dogs. And I would have people let their dogs off leash and they'd be like, oh, well, they're okay. Yeah, well, that's wonderful. I have four dogs here, and one does not want your dog. No, I mean, they probably all four don't want your dog in the space, right? And this one is going to try to attack your dog. So this is so important what we're talking about because respect that we are their protectors. We have to speak up for them.
Exactly. And I think once we start to become cognizant of these things and we integrate it and we become aware of it throughout our days, then that extends to notice what is that like for other animals, especially if someone brings it up to us. A farmed animal advocate or someone who is doing work to support exotic animals. Maybe that's at the local wild animal sanctuary or wherever, a wildlife rehabilitation center. Then perhaps we can start to connect the dots, especially when I just think of when I go out deep canvassing for Prior Animal Future. We lift up those emotions, those values that people intrinsically have, but usually are suppressed when it comes to animals. So we ask a lot of WH questions, who, what, where, when, why, that are all open-ended to try and figure out, what's a story that is very meaningful for them pertaining to animals. And we have to keep the conversation flowing. Other times I've had experiences where folks are just right there with me. They are thinking about animals regularly. They have taken action to help animals in a variety of ways. And, talking to them, it just is very fitting. But others, there's a kind of a mixed bag where, yeah, a lot of things have been suppressed, especially when it comes to, what has ended up on our plate. But then we veer the conversation back to, we're looking at voting. We're not really looking at asking folks to take off, to focus on their dietary choices in that moment. But what can we do to really show that we're evolving together here in the Denver area, that we can be consciously thinking about animals a bit more critically and how they've shown up in our lives. And then, yeah, bringing those emotions up is just exactly what is needed, because when it comes to any shape or form that we interact with animals, whether we pass someone who's been killed on the side of the road, a squirrel that's been hit or someone, or we see pesticides being sprayed, killing insects, or we might notice, someone is killing fish. Like all of these pieces in addition to the endless marketing from animal agriculture, um, yeah, it can start to really sink in.
Yes, and what would you say to someone that just feels so hopeless and just feels like I can't sleep at night because I know so many animals are being hurt, killed, and Mother Earth is being hurt with pesticides. How can I even sleep in peace?
Yeah, it's really, really difficult. I've had so many others tell me the exact same thing. How do we find that peace and comfort? How can we meet our basic needs, such as sleep, when we know of all the violence and the horrors that are happening to animals? You are by no means the only one. It is horrific. And so just taking that moment to validate and uplift, what I just heard is what I would start with. Um, and then moving into some gentle questioning, as we call it in our animal chaplaincy training. Um, I'm wondering if there's a moment in your day where you do notice peace. And then if they're not sure, maybe expanding it towards the outdoors. Is there a peaceful environment or someone you have noticed outdoors where you feel more perhaps at ease, where you feel peace and comfort? And then redirecting that perhaps back to a new, we call them habituals. It's another animal chaplaincy term. What can we tweak in our day to day lives? Something that was challenging because of an abrupt change, or all of a sudden these emotions are very difficult to deal with. And as activists, that can be every single day. It can be many times a day. It can just be sitting down there in our subconscious, but then we're triggered because all of a sudden we're on social media and we see content of animals being harmed, right? So without telling folks, it's a matter of them finding that solution through those guiding questions so that they can find what they ultimately need in that moment. And maybe it doesn't come in that moment. Maybe it comes later on. I've talked about, is there a mantra or a phrase that you've used in the past to help yourself in difficult times? So sometimes people sit and will just take time in silence because they're kind of pondering, and then they come up with some examples. But yeah, that's how it's worked.
Right. I love that questioning and then finding a place of space. And as a coach, so as a transformational coach, knowing that like people might say, well, this whole day has been horrible. I've had a horrible day. But then when we kind of look at it, well, was really the whole day horrible? Was there a moment, like when Louis jumped up and I gave him breakfast and I had the joy of being with him or just sitting with him on the couch. So trying to find a space of peace in that day and realizing it's not the whole day or the whole everything, and how we can create that for ourselves. And I think when we have pets that have passed, it's so important to still keep talking to them, still share the love and say, hey, I love you. Like, I love you, little Mickey and Sergi, and I can go down the list, but I thank you for the gifts you've given me, and I'm honoring you still. I'm still being a force for animals, and I think for me, I find that very healing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think just like with what you mentioned, if we continue to reach out in some capacity, maybe that's through journaling with animals who have passed on or those who are still in our lives. Maybe we notice like the same squirrel finding their way into our compost bin every day. Maybe that's that moment where we kind of just sit in presence and recognize that moment of gratitude. And I think that gratitude practice, whether we say it in our heads, we turn it into a mantra, We journal about it, having that become a habit, part of our day, just part of who we are over time, then that's the shift that can start to occur. But for me, it's been a matter of practicing more and more, getting out of my head, coming back to where I am at, who I'm with. And that's where Animal Reiki has truly, truly helped. Because now I can focus that much more. Whereas before, it's still a challenge. It's still a challenge, but it's definitely become stronger. My ability to attend in the moment and listen for long periods of time, especially when I set that intention. So, yeah.
Well, they said like if you're choosing, and you're believe, it's just like you're on a path and maybe you fall down and you get back up. Mindfulness about it and allowing it. Right? It's not forcing, not just like thinking yourself to death, but it's really seems very heart centered.
Yeah. And then I take that into parks in the Denver area and talk with the public because we're trying to enable some policy change. And I realized, hey, this is what it looks like when I'm a chaplain. I need to be intentional in these moments. And if I'm not, well, it's not going to result in the change that I want to see. And when I'm with a care seeker, or another word is client, I don't have those expectations. I put those expectations to the side, but I am very intentional when it's a matter of going out and talking to folks, to try and get them to vote yes, to get rid of superior farms, to ensure that we're moving in the direction that we need to for animals. And all of this is rooted in empathy when we can sit and really just understand someone in the moment and practice that. So much practice. For me, it started a few years ago, learning nonviolent communication. And again, being very intentional about practicing that with my partner, practicing with my students, and just taking those moments as much as possible, and as well as myself. Because if I'm not understanding my own needs at a given time, it's telling me I need to slow down, especially if things are feeling overwhelming or I become upset.
Right. Yes. And I was just talking about nonviolent communication to a friend yesterday, and she was reading a book, and so
So,
Dr. Amy Crawford. So yeah, she's studied it before, but she hasn't read the book. So she was just saying how interesting it is the way that we have to know what we need. We have to know what we feel, and we're really disconnected, and as a society, in feelings and needs. So when we speak from our feelings and needs and how we can help each other, I feel sad because I'm not getting this and I really need this, right? And then the other person says, so I don't know. This is just something I'm saying, but when someone validates and say, "Hey, I hear that you're feeling sad. I hear that you need this, and I'm here to help you. How can we come together?" I mean, that's so important. And I think as we advocate for animals, it's important to understand how other people are feeling. That we don't want to hurt them in our advocacy.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's um there's a lot of work around being able to identify our feelings and needs in the moment. And if I would take a step back, I would say that really requires us to be able to ground ourselves first. Again, my background in education, I don't see it taught. I don't see it taught, you know, whether that's with young kiddos all the way up to high school. By high school, they kind of just expect you can handle your stuff, so to speak, because
Yeah.
they, yeah, that expectation of independence is very, very strong. Um,
It's so linear. It's such a masculine culture. So I really, as a feminine empowerment coach, I see the way that the society is set up. It's very practical, very, this is the way it is. We follow this course. right? We are not here to really feel or think, to feel or to allow. You got to do it this way. Open your textbook. Now we do this. But where's time for it? The creativity, and I see more and more where they're saying the art classes are being taken out, the music classes are being taken out, and this is all the feminine, and this is what's healing the world.
Mm-hmm. And frankly, it's very easy, if teachers have the capacity to integrate that creative energy into, the Common Core state standards, into their curriculum. It really doesn't take much to veer away from what has traditionally been done, handing students a worksheet, and really giving them some opportunity to blossom. And when it comes to, coming back to our bodies, coming back to our emotions, teachers need to be able to do that too. And so that's also sometimes not the case. I would say a lot of the times it's not the case. And then, how can they be expected to teach that? It's a really tough cycle to witness over and over. For me, it kind of definitely went down a path of burnout, and that's why Animal Chaplaincy just was that breath of fresh air. But I've met some fantastic teachers over the years, and I'm so grateful for what they are doing, because they do have the capacity to, take what they knew was important, being able to calm themselves in a highly, I could say, chaotic moment in a classroom, and being able to notice for themselves where they need to be, and then redirecting students, being able to empathize with small groups, a single student, not embarrassing them, not calling them out, but being in a space where, they can open up and be heard, because they have learned to trust that individual. And that's the key piece. If they're not being heard, they're not going to trust teachers. They're going to shut down, and they're not learning. And that cycle just, it's nonstop. It's really tough. But yeah, some wonderful folks out there who do that. I'm thinking of guidance counselors, social workers I've worked with, school psychologists.
Yeah, I lead hikes at the nature center. I volunteer over there, and one time I led a hike of. There were some little kids on the hike, and what was so beautiful is one little boy said, "Let's stop here and meditate." Now these were little boys and little children, about 7 and 8 years old, and I said, "Wow, I've never had anybody request that on my hike," and they all sat there and and meditated. It was so beautiful. I was so thankful for the teachers that taught them that. That really gave me hope. So that's something that I'll never forget. I mean, there are wonderful teachers out there. So just to keep up the good work. So I wanted to look at this comment from James. If we cannot take care of ourselves as a society, we'll never take care of the animals. It makes me profoundly sad. And I see that it works both ways. And what would you respond to this comment?
I think that's very true. We have to be able to take care of ourselves. We have to get enough sleep. We have to eat healthy food and get exercise, and take care of our spiritual self as well. And all those pieces line up in parallel with extending that care to other beings, no matter who they are. Whether we're outside planting a tree and needing to focus on what are the needs of this tree in this moment. If we're elsewhere because we're too fatigued, or, we have so many other things on our to-do list, and we don't know how to put aside that feeling of being overwhelmed, well, then this tree's needs are not going to be met, and this tree may die. And of course, that extends to animals too, whether we're working at a sanctuary or a shelter, or we're going undercover, we're at a protest, no matter what it is. Do we have the capacity to be present? Can we handle a moment if conflict arises? Can we come back to ourselves and find that space of calm so that we can hear others, knowing that in this movement, conflict is the thing that is the most prevalent in fighting, most prevalent. So, yeah, self-care in all ways, shapes, and forms, but also developing our inner self directly alongside that. I think that's a huge need.
Very true. And here's another comment. It's all part of a system change to more coherent. Start with your home, family, and pets.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Starting just right where we're at. Yeah. Thank you, Maria.
Yeah, and it's all. I mean, it's. If and James's comment is, if we can't take care of ourselves as a society, we'll never take care of the animals. If we can't take care of our animals as a society, we'll never take care of ourselves. I mean, this is all intertwined. So if we don't take care of Mother Earth, we'll never be able to take care of ourselves. So it's all. There has to be some balance here. And really, what I hear you saying, Alaina, is that um, we have to learn that there's going to be conflict in this world. There's going to be sadness, and how can we deal with it? And so I know that Maria works with people that just commented. Thank you for your comment. Helping people to really ground and to be in the wisdom, more mindful living, and we, I guess, this is all inner work, and it sounds like for you, that the Animal Chaplain program really helped you sit in the quiet space and be reflective about questions. What is this? I was reflective in the pool yesterday. Let me tell you, I was in the pool and I felt like, okay, what time did I get here? How long am I going to be here? I thought, I hear an echo now. Um, anyway, I thought I have to be in here a certain amount of time, or it's not going to count, right? And I thought this is crazy. I was very obsessed with the time, and I couldn't even relax and enjoy myself because of this thing with the time. And then I just kind of snapped out of it, and I said, "What am I doing?" That like the trees are overhead, the sun, and all of this is inviting,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm fixated on some structured um, idea. And it's totally the opposite of what I teach, which is feminine energy and allowing, right? The allowing of being and the quietness. So it's interesting that I'm always being kept in check by the world. But to catch myself and to simply question what made me feel like I had to keep up with the time, and what was blocking me from just going in and allowing it to be. But the next time I go to the pool, I will think twice about the timing of it and all of this. Just go in and say thank you, trees, and thank you, everyone, for standing with me as I lay in the pool.
Oh, Mariquita, that's so beautiful. I love that you brought up time too. Time comes up in a very different way for most of us. So I love that you recognize that you don't need to be there for a certain amount of time. You're there with the trees, you're there with the sun. I think that is perhaps one of the most common themes, time in some fashion that pops into our mind. Like for me, even with my animal Reiki practice, I just realized, have I spent enough time in this session? And so, yes, of course, I do want to continue to grow on how much time I can offer in the meditation. But it's something I've worried about. And that is what I need to set aside. So that's a really big piece, I think, with what we're able to accomplish with whatever intention we set in that moment. We have to really, really dig, because otherwise, we won't be able to take care of the animals like James mentioned. They don't want
Right.
my anxiety coming into the meditation.
Right.
So that's gonna cause some folks to be like, nope, I'm out of here. That's what happens when I'm not in the Reiki space. Some you go off and focus on something else because I'm not there with them. So rightfully so, of course, they take off and they may come back, and if not, that's okay too. But yeah, I love that you brought up time.
Yes, it's something that we really have thrust down our throats sometimes. And, even when we spend time with people, you might spend 5 minutes, just that's just the most precious 5 minutes of your life. And you could spend an hour and then not have that same beautiful experience in an hour as you had in just like even in just 1 minute. So it's really, yeah, it's a good reminder.
Mm-hmm.
James is talking about the balance, so definitely balance in the world, and that's what Maria is saying about more coherence, balance, flow, this allowing and being, and that's really being in the heart and not so much in the thinking.
Definitely. I think it's tough to do when there's so many distractions, so many things, even within our own home. The endless to-do list, places to go, and things of that nature. Um, I guess I'll bring up I'm excited for the first time to go to a meditation retreat at Deer Park Monastery in a week. It's just north of San Diego, and it's Deer Park Monastery is embedded with Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition. There's many traditions, yeah. So they have a beautiful, I don't believe at this monastery, but one in France, they have, this is on my bucket list, a happy farm, which is all veganic.
Mm,
You can go and attend for, I think, at minimum 2 weeks, up to several months, where the retreat itself is, mindfulness practices, working on the farm. So I
that's
thought,
exciting.
gosh, if there's a way for me to embed what I love to do. I do love to garden. I have a bit of a background in vegan permaculture. What a beautiful offering for folks. So
Yes, that's amazing.
yeah,
We need as many places to help animals as we can get, and we need as many people that are helping. So, I mean, what you're doing is very, I mean, it's there's no, I mean, it's priceless. Is what I'm trying to say. What you're doing is priceless for animals.
oh, thank you. I
Well,
very much appreciate what you're doing and bringing all these wonderful folks into this live stream, into your YouTube channel. So thank you, Mariquita.
yeah, I'm very happy to do it. Thank you. And I see that we're coming to the end of our hour. So, let if any final words, and let us know where we can reach you, and if people have questions.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share. So I have a website called thenightskygarden.org. My offerings, animal mindfulness practices, interspecies meditations. I'm going to continue to add more videos for folks to try animal Reiki at home if they like. And you can also find the Night Sky Garden on Instagram. I'm very new to Instagram, so it's a work in progress. But if anybody would ever like to reach out, please feel free to contact me through one of those platforms. And I'm so
Well,
grateful to have spent the time here today, Mariquita. Thank you so much.
well, thank you, Elena. I'm very happy to have this conversation. It's really, I was actually having a very busy morning, so now I feel very peaceful. You have a wonderful energy.
Oh,
And
thank you. I'm glad you have found a way away from the busyness here.
I have, and we have one more coming. I guess James is saying, tell her about the horse. Well, I think I know what he's talking about. We are Reiki healers. James actually is more than a Reiki healer in that he's had very energetic experiences from childhood.
Mm.
So before he even took the Reiki class, but he was asked to go do Reiki on a troubled horse, and he was able to really connect with that horse, and they were head to head. It was beautiful, that energy of healing. So I think that's what he's talking about. But all animals are open to love, and really that's what Reiki is, love. So beautiful
Yes.
experiences from all of us here.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm glad you had that connection with the horse, James. I think exactly when we can open up to love and light and just hold that space, anything is possible. And we can take that out into our lives. And I know that the level 3 Reiki training that Kathleen Prasad offers with the Let Animals Lead method is, we extend that into moments throughout our day where we can see with our Reiki eyes at any given time. And like just putting on a hat in that moment. And then gradually we can start to just be Reiki. With enough intention and practice, it's something I aspire to do. And I'm so glad there's so many others who are doing that for animals, for all beings, frankly. So,
And James is saying the whole point was that he trusted the horse. Yes, he did. I mean, trust is a huge element in every relationship, mutual trust. And that's when everything blooms, right? When everyone feels safe. So I love that, James. You're right. You trusted the horse, and the horse trusted you. And then he said, after not or choosing not to study horses first, which would have introduced fear. So yeah, and that's exactly
yeah.
studying is the mind when we're just trusting is love. I mean, it's coming from here, and we can think about it, to death, and then probably be more afraid, which is what he's saying. But anyway, um, this has been a wonderful conversation. I want to be respectful of everybody's time here, and thank you so much, Elena. You'll have to come back on again later on and give us updates on everything that's going on in Colorado in your life.
I'd be honored to. Yeah, thank you so much, Mariquita, for everything that you do. This has been fantastic. I really enjoyed our conversation.
So did I. And everyone, thanks for watching, Maria and James, and everyone else who watches on the replay. And please hit subscribe and check out Elena's website. Is it Night Sky Garden?
Mm-hmm.
That is so beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all, well, thank y'all very much. And everyone have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.